My name is Edward Walker. I fought in a war they told us would end all wars. They promised that we'd come back, heroes, men with medals pinned to our chests, parades down every street. They lied, or maybe I just misunderstood. War never ends. Not really. It burrows into your bones, into your mind, and it waits there, even when the guns fall silent. I sit here, in this little cabin by the edge of the forest. The fire crackles in the hearth, and I can feel the heat on my old bones, but it doesn't reach the cold that lives in my chest. I look around at the photographs, at the faded black and white faces frozen in time. Margaret, my Margaret, smiling, hair like sunlight. And Tommy, my boy, just 10 years old when he was taken from me. Taken while I was fighting a war that was supposed to keep people like them safe. I never saw them again. And I survived. I survived with this hole in my body and a bigger one in my heart. My left leg, gone from an explosion on a freezing night in Europe. I remember the snow, the blood, and the scream of my friend Charlie as he fell beside me. I carried Harris, and Charlie, he didn't make it. I remember the day I left. 1942. I was 22, hair thick and black, eyes full of fire, and a chest full of pride I didn't really understand yet. Pearl Harbor had happened, and like every young man, I thought I was needed, that I could do something important. Margaret held me tight. Tommy tugged at my sleeve. I promised them I'd be back before Christmas. I lied to myself as much as them. Be careful, Margaret said, her voice soft, trembling. Don't do anything stupid. I kissed her cheek. I held Tommy's small hand. I thought I was invincible, that courage alone would protect me. But courage isn't enough. Not in war. The journey to Europe was endless. Cold. The sea smelled of salt and diesel, and the men around me. They were boys, just like me, pretending to be men. We talked, we laughed, we tried not to think about what was waiting for us. Charlie cracked jokes no one really heard. Harris hummed old songs. Duke, quiet as always, kept his letters pressed in his chest, like they were life rafts in a storm. And then we landed. France. Snow everywhere. The war didn't feel like the stories we'd heard. It felt like a mouth full of ice and fire at the same time. Mud that sucked your boots, blood that stained everything, screams that never left your ears, not day, not night. I remember the first time I saw Charlie die. The explosion hit. A wall of snow and earth and fire. I grabbed him, tried to pull him from the debris, his eyes wide, staring at nothing. And then gone. Just like that. I felt something inside me crack. But I couldn't stop. Harris was caught in the open, panicking. I ran, even though I was afraid, even though I didn't want to move. I lifted him, felt the weight of his body, and then the blast. When I woke, snow was red. My leg gone. Pain that didn't make sense. Harris alive, barely conscious. I don't remember who carried us out. Maybe no one. Maybe me. I don't remember. I woke up in a hospital later, weeks passing in a blur. Doctors, nurses, strangers calling me hero. Hero. I lost a leg, yes. But what does a leg compare to the family I had lost? To the screams I could still hear in my sleep? And when I finally came home, I walked off that train on crutches, hoping, praying, and no one was there. No smiling faces, no letters, no warm fire. My home had been destroyed in a bombing at a factory. Margaret and Tommy gone. Forever. The world around me moved on. They pinned medals on my chest, shook my hand, and walked away. But my war, it hadn't ended. It had just changed shape. Every day, I live with ghosts. Faces I cannot forget. Sounds I cannot unhear. I worked odd jobs after that. Anything I could do sitting down, anything that didn't make me look too much like a cripple. People avoided me sometimes. Others, they stared at me, expecting to see a hero, expecting to hear tales of glory. I gave them silence, because glory doesn't exist when the people you love are gone. I visited their grave every year. Margaret and Tommy side by side. I brought flowers sometimes nothing at all. And I talked, even though I knew no one would answer. I said the things I never got to say. I asked forgiveness for surviving when they didn't. I cursed God for leaving me behind. And yet, here I am, old, 85, living in this cabin, recording my story on this tape. hoping anyone will listen, hoping someone will know that the medals, the stories, the battles, they mean nothing compared to love lost. I don't know if anyone will hear this. Maybe it will sit in a box somewhere. Maybe it will be gone before anyone knows it existed. But I needed to say it, needed to remember. And maybe if someone hears it, they'll understand that war doesn't end when the fighting stops. It follows you home. It follows you for the rest of your life. When I came home, I thought the world would be waiting for me. I thought there'd be smiles, letters, warm embraces. But the streets were the same streets I had left behind, and the people, they looked at me as though I was already gone. My house was gone. The walls that held laughter, the smell of Margaret's cooking, the sound of Tommy's small feet, all destroyed. And I was left with a crutch under one arm, a medal in my pocket, and nothing else. I tried to work. Anything I could do while sitting down. Delivery, small repairs, jobs that didn't require running or jumping. They treated me politely, but they didn't see me. Their eyes fell on my wooden leg, and sometimes their pity hurt more than the war ever had. Heroism, they called it. But a hero who returns to empty arms, a hero who sees the people he loved vanish like smoke. There's no glory in that. I visited the memorial every year. Margaret, Tommy, Charlie, Harris, Duke. I carved their names into my memory when the government didn't care to. And I talked to them. Sometimes I swear I could hear the echoes of their laughter. Sometimes I swear I could feel Charlie's arm brushing mine in the snow, the same snow that stole my leg, that stole him, that left me behind. I tried love again once or twice, but every time someone came close, I saw her face, Margaret, and I'd pull away. How could anyone understand a heart filled with ghosts? And I didn't want to burden anyone with the shadows I carried. So I lived alone, with whiskey for company, fire for warmth, and the endless hum of memory in my ears. I found the letters she'd sent before she died, never opened. 40 years I carried them in my pocket, unread, until one night I finally opened the first one. If you can't come home, live, truly live, she had written. And for 40 years, I didn't live. I let the war take everything. I let it take her, my boy, and my soul along with them. Harris wrote sometimes. Short notes. We survived. That counts. But he didn't know what surviving meant to me. To survive without the ones who mattered most, it's a curse, not a blessing. Every night, the silence in my cabin is louder than any battlefield. The quiet mocks me, and yet I speak to it. I speak to the memories so they don't fade. I see the young men I fought beside. Charlie, gone in a heartbeat. Duke, somewhere in France, I hope. Harris, alive, but broken in ways the world will never measure. We weren't heroes. We were boys in steel helmets pretending to be men. And still, somehow I survived. Sometimes at night, I close my eyes and I'm back there. The snow biting my face, the screams ringing in my ears, the explosion that stole my leg. And I am grateful, I suppose. Grateful to still breathe, to still remember. But the cost, it is etched into my heart forever. I built a life of quiet, solitary. The cabin in the woods, a small garden in summer, the fire in winter. I talk to the walls. I talk to the photographs. Sometimes I speak to them as if they can hear me. Perhaps they do. Perhaps this is all that remains of us. This voice, these words, these memories. I don't know how long I have left. And perhaps it doesn't matter. I needed to tell this story. To someone, anyone. Maybe it will fade. Maybe it will sit in a box somewhere, unheard. But if someone listens, they will understand. War follows you home. It never leaves. And love, and loss, and memory are the things we carry the longest. Morning. I can tell by the way the light slips through the curtains. It's weak but warm. Been a long time since I stayed up all night talking. My throat feels dry, but I reckon I've said more in the last few hours than I have in the last 40 years. I can hear the river out back, steady and gentle. Used to take Tommy down there to skip stones. He was 5 when I left for Europe. Had my eyes his mother smile. I wonder what kind of man he would have become. Maybe a teacher, maybe a dreamer. Margaret said he wanted to be a pilot. Said he wanted to touch the sky. You know, I used to blame the world, the government, God, anyone. I thought if I pointed at something, maybe it'd make the pain make sense. But time has a cruel way of teaching you. There's no one left to blame. Life just happens, and you're left holding the pieces that no one else wants. I spent years angry. Angry at my missing leg, angry at the empty bed beside me, angry at the mirror that showed a face I didn't recognize anymore. But anger, it's like carrying fire in your hands. Sooner or later, it burns everything you touch. One winter night, I went to that memorial again. Snow falling, wind sharp, the world quiet. I sat there for hours talking to names carved in stone. My hand froze around a flower I couldn't afford to buy. I told them I was tired, that I'd lived too long for a man who left his soul overseas. And then, I remember the letter, the one I never opened. Margaret's handwriting careful, gentle, like her. I'd carried it in my pocket since the hospital. Never had the courage to read it. Not until that night. Her voice came alive in every word. She wrote, "My dearest Eddie, if you're reading this, it means I didn't get to see you again. But I want you to know I never stopped waiting. Not a single day. You told me once that war makes men forget who they are. Don't let it take you away from yourself. Promise me you'll find peace, somehow. Promise me you'll live, even if I can't be there to see it." I don't remember crying. I just remember the snow melting on my hands. I read that letter 100 times since. Every word feels heavier now. She knew. Somehow, she knew I'd survive when she didn't. Maybe that was her gift to let me carry the weight, so she wouldn't have to. I kept that promise eventually. Took me half a lifetime, but I'm keeping it now by speaking these words. I'm living through this story. Through every memory, every ache, every ghost that still sits with me at night. You see, the world forgets old soldiers. They fade like photographs left in the sun. But what we saw, what we lost, it never really dies. It's written in the silence between heartbeats, in the way the world looks different after you've seen it burn. Sometimes I think of the boys. Charlie laughing in the mud, Harris reading his letters out loud, Duke pretending not to be scared. I see them standing at the edge of the forest, young forever, waiting for me to join them. Maybe someday I will. But not tonight. Tonight, I'll stay right here. I'll keep the fire burning a little longer. Maybe I'll pour one last drink for me and the ghosts. Maybe I'll play that old record Margaret loved, the one with the scratches that make it skip every few seconds. She used to say the skips made it sound more human. Maybe she was right. Life's funny that way. You think you're writing your story, but sometimes it's the story that writes you. I used to think mine ended in the snow of Europe or in the ashes of my home. But maybe it ends here, with this voice, on this tape, in this cabin where time finally stood still. And if someone finds this tape someday, maybe a stranger, maybe no one at all, I want them to hear what's left of me. Not a soldier, not a hero, just a man who loved deeply, lost everything, and learned, too late, that love doesn't die. It only changes shape. Margaret, Tommy, if you can hear me, I'm coming home soon. Just not yet.